those that we were previously, or do we have all members in attendance as far as we're aware?
I'm looking at the number that we're in before we had a short break, Mr. Mayor, and the members also on the participants list, and it seems to be in order. So what we'll do, are we, if we're having a vote rather, Mike will read out the names in the participants list, and I'll tot up because it's quite difficult for him to do both. Okay. Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we'll restart the meeting now. The recording is back on, and it's made clear that a roll call, recorded vote want to be taken. I take it all members are in favour of that.
Right.
So we shall.
Yes.
Yeah, all in favour of that. Okay, so we shall go to recorded vote. I think then, as was advised by Kelly Watson, members, if they wish to vote against that, I take it will be the time for them to give their reasons for voting against, as advised by the monitoring officer. I think, do you say Mike can call the names out?
Yes, I'll call the names out, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, members, because the item 5 has been moved and seconded. We've had a discussion, so we'll now take the vote. 4, which I take it to be in favour of the recommendations as the report on item 5, or against or abstain. So, over to you, Mike.
First of all, are there any dissenters then, Mr. Mayor? Do we need to vote?
Yes, object.
Okay, fine.
That was straight answer. Great. Okay, over to you, Mike. I can go through the list, please, one by one.
Yep, certainly. Councillor Alex Williams.
Against.
Councillor Amanda Williams.
Sorry, Mike. So I take it Councillor Alex Williams' his reason for voting against, as he explained previously, or do you wish to add anything to it?
I think, as you've mentioned previously, Mr. Mayor, I've spoken far too much during this meeting, so it's for the aforementioned reasons which I given in the debate.
Okay, and that was recorded in the debate. Okay, carry on, Mike.
Kelly, shall I carry on the vote?
Please, Mike, I can carry on the vote. I think it was Councillor Amanda Williams next.
Councillor Amanda Williams.
I'm against as well, please. I'd have liked to have seen the reduction too in council tax for the reasons that Alex Williams gave out, and I'm happy to provide an updated statement to Kelly if she wants it, as to my full reasons as well.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, before we continue, can I just say that that anybody voting against, I will expect written reasons for that decision. And just to reiterate my previous advice, this is contrary to statutory officer advice. No alternatives have been put forward. So the only proposal available today in accordance with the Constitution is the one before you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, it's just a clarifying, Kelly. So we prefer people, rather than explain the reasons if they vote against, supply it in writing to you later.
I would be expecting quite detailed reasons why they're going contrary to officer advice. I don't think saying that they would have liked a reduction is a justified reason on the basis they didn't put forward that proposal in accordance with the Constitution.
Okay, that's clear. Okay, Michael, can carry on.
Councillor Neil Pachella.
Thank you, Michael. Abstain, please.
Councillor Charles Smith.
I'm voting for, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like those voting against to put on their social media that they've just voted against a £1.5 million increase in school budgets and all the other benefits in the budget.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Mr. Mayor, would you have actually accepted a response like that from any other councillor? Is this?
Sorry, Councillor Alex Williams, we do not need
I thought this was a vote on the item, not an explanation. I thought this was a vote on the item, not an explanation of why people are voting for or against.
So you don't accept my challenge, Councillor?
Sorry.
Well, I think you would have. I think, Mr. Mayor, you would have called. I think, Mr. Mayor, you would have called it out of order.
Members, can I intervene?
Yes, please, Kelly.
This is a vote. If we can just proceed with the vote, and can everybody please remember their obligations under the Code of Conduct?
Thank you, Kelly. And I would like it when I speak in that not talked across. Thank you very much. And If we could proceed with the vote, Michael.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Cheryl Green.
For.
Councillor Chris Davis.
For.
Councillor Keith Edwards.
For, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor David Lewis. Councillor David Lewis.
For, thank you, Michael.
Councillor David White.
For the budget.
Councillor Denisha Patel.
For the budget, thanks.
Councillor Gareth Howells.
For, please, Michael.
Councillor Gary Thomas.
For, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Hugh David.
For, please.
Councillor Howell Williams.
For, please.
Councillor Jane Gebby.
For, please, Michael.
Councillor Janice Lewis. Councillor Janice Lewis.
For.
For. Councillor John McCarthy.
For, please, Michael.
Councillor John Spanswick.
For.
Councillor John Paul Blundell.
For, thank you, Mike and Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Julia Williams.
Against.
Councillor Kay Rowlands.
Abstain.
Councillor Lynn Walters.
Abstain.
Councillor Martin Jones.
For, please, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Matthew Voisey.
Abstain.
Councillor Mike Clark.
I'm in. Abstain, please.
Councillor Mike Kern.
For, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Nicole Burnett.
I'm for.
Councillor Nora Clark.
I'm abstaining, Michael, please.
Councillor Pam Davis.
For, thanks, Michael.
Councillor Paul Davis.
For, please, Michael.
Councillor Richard Collins.
For, Michael, please.
Councillor Richard Granville.
For, please, Michael.
Councillor Jeff Tilsley.
For, Michael.
Councillor Richard Young.
For, thank you, Michael.
Councillor Malcolm James.
For.
Councillor Rod Shaw.
In favour, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Sean Aspey.
For, please, Michael.
Councillor Steve Smith.
For the budget, please.
Councillor Stuart Baldwin.
For, please, Michael.
Councillor Tom Beadle.
For.
Councillor Ross Thomas.
For.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Was that 4?
For. Thank you.
Councillor Bridie Sedgbeer.
For.
And Councillor Tim Thomas.
Abstain.
I believe that's everyone, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, it's Councillor Ken Watts here. I've only just managed to get back on the list, so it wouldn't have,
Okay.
Michael wouldn't have seen my name.
Okay,
But
Councillor
I am in,
Watts.
and my vote is against.
Okay, Councillor Watts, and you have heard the advice from Kelly Watson as well, yeah?
Yes, I was listening on another machine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, can we have results of the vote, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've got 33 for the report's recommendation. We've got 4 against, and we've got 7 abstentions.
Okay. So that item is carried.
Mr. Mayor, I do apologise. Just a point on the procedure.
Procedure of the vote just taken.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Right, the time to ask clarity on procedure was before.
I mean, you know, the vote is gone and it's binding, but I find it a bit inappropriate a roll call. I think listening to previous members, the way they're voting is an influencing factor. And I appreciate it's difficult, but perhaps this is something that we could think about in the future for future votes.
Yeah, it's definitely something that technology allows. It would be hopefully some system. Well, we'll be hybrid meetings soon, but there'll still be some system perhaps we can press a button to vote. But that's something that is being looked at and hopefully soon be available. But we are where we are today. Thank you for coming. Kelly, would you like to comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was just that point really that this is we've been operating for 2 years, so this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. We've done it this way. We are having some works done in the chamber in April to introduce a hybrid system, and hopefully that may resolve some of these issues.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pam Davis, you got a hand up, but we have finished this item now. Is there a problem?
No, just to come back on that. You know, we're all adults. We're married. We got children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, mortgages. Come on. If the vote had gone the other way, I wonder if we'd have these comments.
Okay.
This is a person's individual vote. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, but I've had to come in and say that.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. We are moving on to the next item now. That's item 5 completed. Item 6X is the council tax 2022-23. If we go back to Caris first one, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide council with details of the council tax requirement for the County Borough Council, together with the requirements of the Police and Crime Commissioner for South Wales and Town and Community Councils, and to seek council approval of the Band D council tax for Bridgend County Borough Council and the community areas for the coming financial year. In accordance with the Local Government Finance Act 1992, the council has to calculate its budget requirement and then set the level of council tax for the coming financial year. In addition, as a billing authority, Bridgend County Borough Council is also required to calculate the basic amount of council tax for dwellings within the area which relate to one or more special items. This council collects the council tax on behalf of Town and Community Councils and the Police and Crime Commissioner for South Wales. The money is collected on behalf of these organisations and is then paid over to the relevant bodies in line with the amount they have included in their budget to be charged to households in the County Borough of Bridgend. Council has just agreed a net budget requirement for the council for the coming financial year of £319 million. This equates to a council tax of £1,597.01 on a Band D property. This is a zero increase for the coming financial year. The Police and Crime Commissioner for South Wales has notified the council that their precept for the coming financial year was agreed by the South Wales Police and Crime Panel on the 3rd of February. As a result, their precept on a Band D property will increase to £302.11, a 5% increase. This increase by council tax banding is shown in Table 3 of your report this afternoon. The council has also been informed of budget requirements by town and community councils, and this is an average of a 0.78% reduction for the coming financial year. Table 6 within the report details for members the total average Band D council tax requirement for 22-23 for all areas of Bridgend. A further breakdown of the council tax for each area, detailing the amount payable to this council, the Police and Crime Commissioner for South Wales and the relevant community council is shown in Table 7. I would ask members to note that whilst Bridgend County Council has agreed a 0% increase for the coming financial year, some council taxpayers will see an increase in their overall bill for the reasons already outlined above. I would therefore, Mr. Mayor, take members to the recommendations at 9 in this report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Caris. So, members, the recommendation is a Band D council tax for Bridgend County Borough Council of £1,597.01, for 2022-23 and the council tax charges of Band D properties for 22-23 for each of the community areas as outlined in Table 7. Do we have a mover and seconder, please?
Move
Chair.
recommendation.
Second.
Second. Thank you. We have some questions. Councillor Alex Williams.
Yeah, I won't rehearse what I said earlier, Mr. Mayor, but I object for the aforementioned reasons, so I'd like a roll call.
Okay. Councillor Aspey. Oops, no.
Sorry, I was on mute then. Just one
yeah.
question. It's regarding the assistance for bands A to D, which is £150. Is that going to be in the actual letters going out to households with that reduction on for this council tax year? I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
In looking, just to make a point of order, we are virtually coming up to the most expensive council in Wales. I'm looking back at the history of the council. The damage was done between 1999 and 2004. I think that was the Jeff Jones administration, and there were double-digit increases for those 5 years. And I have noted that 2012 was a council tax freeze, as opposed to this year as well, which seems to coincide with an election, but I'm not going to make a point about that.
Point made. Right, I don't know if we need a long debate about it. Councillor Martin Jones. No, yes, no. Hands are coming on and going off, so I'm not sure if there's anything wrong with the system here.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a question, if I may,
right, Councillor Martin Jones, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can we have some advice in relation to the proposed increase in the South Wales Police precept? Because we have representation on the police crime panel. And is it a case really where we support the police crime panel? For example, if we were to vote against it, where would this authority stand in relation to its presence and influence on the crime panel?
Okay. Could we have some more? Is Caris best? Both the question about the £150 discount and the question there from Councillor Martin Jones. Kelly or Caris?
Mr. Mayor, might I suggest, Mr. Mayor, sorry, could I suggest perhaps Councillor Richard Young as our representative on the police and crime panel, maybe consider that second round?
I know that. Also, there's a question first though from Councillor Aspey about the £150 discount. And I'd like to get an answer to that one, so if that's cleared out of the way first. If we could. Then we come to Councillor Young. Caris?
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Mayor. I wonder whether my colleague Deb could come in and answer that question.
Deborah, yeah, okay. Thank you. Deborah Exton, please.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Caris. For the recording, I'm Deborah Exton, Deputy Head of Finance. In terms of the council tax bills that go out, from what we understand from Welsh Government, there's still a lot of work and detail to be worked through in terms of how the payments will be made. But we understand that there won't be a reduction on the council tax bill, but there will be a separate payment into council taxpayers' accounts. So whilst this hasn't been confirmed totally yet, what will happen is that where we have direct bank account details through council taxpayers that pay by direct debit, the likelihood is that we will make the payments directly into their bank accounts. And then obviously we'll have to work through those whose details that we don't have, and there may be a process whereby they have to register the details with us, the bank account details, so we can make those payments. I think Welsh Government understand that obviously this isn't going to be a simple process. We've got about 50,000 individual payments we will need to make as a council into individual bank accounts. So it will take quite some time. Payments won't start until April, and they could take quite a few months to get them all made. I mean, we've made quite a lot of payments to individuals and individual businesses over the last couple of years, but absolutely nothing of this magnitude. So I would probably urge you to bear with us, because this is a whole new ball game for us, really, in terms of making this number of payments. So, but we will be working with Welsh Government and all other local authorities as to how to administer this, and we'll obviously get the payments out as soon as we can, when we can.
Okay, thank you, Deborah, for that. That's useful. Councillor Richard Young, please, now, if we could, regards as a representative on the police and crime panel. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we had a very interesting meeting of the panel that was held earlier on this month. I think the Commissioner did come to the panel and outlined his requirements along with the Chief Constable in order to finance the policing of South Wales. There was very short notice in him creating his budget on the basis that the settlement coming from central government was late in coming through. However, he looked for a 5% increase. Now, there was much debate in the chamber because it was held in Merthyr Tydfil chamber because they are the host authority. There are 11 members on that panel at the moment, and much debate was had with regards to the ability of our residents to be able to pay 5% increase when you take into consideration the cost of living crisis, the fact that inflation is rising, the fact that wages are not keeping up with inflation. So there were a number of facets that we were looking at. And I have to say that it was a lively debate. And I do have to say that it was very, very close. We would have required 8 votes for us to veto the 5%. If we got less than 8, no veto was possible. However, if we had vetoed it, it would give the Commissioner 2 weeks to come back with a new figure. And all the Commissioner would have to do is to reduce that figure by 0.01%. And he had done that and brought it back. There was no further veto that the panel could have carried out. If we had 8 voting against it, we still would have vetoed it. If we had 7 or 6 voting against it, then I would be in a position to tell the Commissioner that his increase would go through, but it wasn't supported by the panel. In actual fact, we got 5 votes, and on that basis, the increase was accepted by 6 votes to 5. So we weren't in a position really to veto it. However, I can report to the Council that Gwent Police and Crime Panel did veto the 5% that the Commissioner in Gwent brought to that panel. And they vetoed it and told him to go away and come back requiring 5.5 because they didn't think that the increase was high enough. Now, I'm assured that if Alan Michael had been told that, he would have accepted that quite eagerly. But I can assure you that was not in our minds, and it was a lively debate. If you were asking what was my personal vote, then I can tell you I voted against the increase.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Young, for that. That explains that quite clearly for everybody. We now have Councillor Amanda Williams.
Thanks very much. My question is on this payment for the bands A, B and C. Looking at new developments, Park Derwent, Gather Casteth, for example, most of the houses, I think if not all of them, are band D or above. What happens in relation to the Help to Buy schemes? Is there money based on the house value? Because a lot of the residents are part of these schemes where they haven't bought 100% of their house. Do they have to pay the 100% council tax, or would they be included in these people who are due to get a payment? Thanks.
Not sure if there's anybody able to clarify that matter.
Mr. Mayor, do you mind if I have a stab at that for you? Sorry.
Well, can we just listen to Deborah Exon first, and then we'll come.
You can, of course.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In terms, it will literally, as far as we're aware, be based on who is in the bandings A to D. So which householders are council taxpayers in those bandings, plus also people who are in the other bandings but receive council tax reduction. So there is, it's not just strictly A to D. So I think it will depend on it's more on what council tax band they're in, or whether they receive council tax reduction. But as I say, we haven't had the final guidance through. We haven't had any guidance through as yet. There's a lot of discussions with Welsh Government. So obviously, once we do get the information, we will be publicising it and putting communication out there so residents know whether or not they will be eligible for this or not. But there is still a lot of detailed guidance to work through. And we do find that it changes over time as more and more queries come about. So we will keep residents up to date through our various communications channels.
Thank you, Deborah, and thanks for clarifying. It is bands A to D, not A to C. And
yeah, A to D.
That's nothing to do with council tax. Help to buy is a separate thing altogether.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with the council tax. Okay, thank you, Councillor Baldwin.
No further clarification needed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Baldwin. Okay, there's no further people indicated to speak or any questions. So it's been moved and seconded. Councillor Sean Aspey, your question?
Sorry, my hand has gone up for some reason.
No, you're not. Okay. I take it members happy for we'll go for a recorded vote. Caris?
All right.
His hands popping.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I wonder whether I could just ask the reason for the vote. The reason for querying it is that we've just agreed the council tax for Bridgend, therefore our council tax levy will be clear. The other two elements of the final bill are the South Wales Police and the Town and Community Councils. They've already set their budgets and told us the precept that we have to pay. So I'm just wondering the basis of the vote.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Alex Williams, I think you requested that there be a roll call.
Yeah, thanks. That's really helpful, Caris. I withdraw my request then. Thank you.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. I take it members are in favour of that?
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
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 Right, thank you. It's item 6 completed with item 7, excellent Treasury Management and Capital Strategies 2022-23. I think it's one more for Caris, yeah?
It is one more for me. Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You'll be pleased to hear it's the last one from me this afternoon. So the purpose of this report is to present to Council for approval the Treasury Management Strategy for 2022-23, which is attached at Appendix A, and this includes the Treasury Management indicators, and also to approve the Capital Strategy for the period 2022-23 to 2031-32, which is Appendix B, which includes the prudential indicators and the annual minimum revenue provision statement for the coming year. Both Treasury management and the control of capital expenditure are regulated by legislation. The legislation provides local authorities with the powers to borrow and invest, as well as providing controls and limits on this activity. The Prudential Code for Capital Finance in local authorities includes a requirement for the Council to approve a Treasury management strategy before the start of each financial year. And this should set out the Council's and Chief Financial Officer's responsibilities, delegation and reporting arrangements. The proposed strategy for the coming year is attached at Appendix A to your report today. In addition, local authorities are required to determine a capital strategy, which demonstrates that the authority takes capital expenditure and investment decisions in line with service objectives and properly takes account of stewardship, value for money, prudence, sustainability and affordability when making these decisions. The proposed capital strategy for 2022-23 to 2031-32 is attached as Appendix B of this report. If I may, Mr. Mayor, I will just briefly summarise for members each of those two documents. So firstly, with regards to the Treasury Management Strategy, the ongoing impact on the UK of the pandemic, together with the higher inflation, higher interest rates following the Bank of England's increase in interest rates in December 2021, and then again more recently in February this year, and the impact of the UK leaving Europe will be major influences on the Council's Treasury Management Strategy for the coming financial year. As at the 31st of December 2021, the Council held £96.8 million of borrowing and had investments of £77.5 million. The external debt and investment position is shown in Table 1 within the Treasury Management Strategy. That strategy highlights that the Council will have a new borrowing requirement over the coming 3 years to fund the proposed capital programme. With short-term interest rates currently much lower than longer-term rates, it is likely to be more cost-effective in the short term to use our internal resources to fund our expenditure. The strategy is clear that we will take the most appropriate form of borrowing depending on the prevailing interest rates at the time. The borrowing need will be monitored on an ongoing basis, and any new borrowing will be considered alongside any changes in the capital programme that may affect the level of borrowing required. Any significant changes within these proposals will be reported to Cabinet, Governance and Audit Committee and Council as appropriate. Members will be aware that Her Majesty's Treasury issued revised lending terms for Public Work Loans Board borrowing by local authorities in November 2020, and I am aware that this has been brought to Council's attention in the past. The Public Works Loan Board would be the major source of any borrowing that the Council undertakes. Under these new requirements, as the Section 151 officer, I would be required to confirm the capital expenditure plans do not include an intention by the authority to borrow to invest primarily for financial return. And I can confirm that the Council does not intend to invest in this way. As I outlined earlier, at the end of December last year, the Council had £77.5 million of investments. The Council's main objective when investing money is to strike an appropriate balance between risk and return, to minimise the risk of incurring losses from defaults and the risk of receiving unsuitably low investment income. The Council may invest its surplus funds with approved counterparties, and these are detailed for you at Table 6 of the Treasury Management Strategy. During 2022-23, Council will receive reports as required in line with the requirements of the Code of Practice. This includes the annual Treasury Management Strategy, which you have here today, a mid-year monitoring report, and an annual Treasury outturn report. I'd now like to take you to Appendix B of this report, which is the capital strategy for the period 2022-23 to 2031-32. This strategy gives a high-level overview of how capital expenditure, capital financing and treasury management activity contributes to the provision of services. This document is presented to Council as an integral part of the Council's budget and policy framework. It links with the corporate plan, the Treasury Management Strategy, the medium-term financial strategy and the Council's asset management plan. The plan details how any proposed investments in land and buildings will require the completion of a full feasibility study to evaluate the practicality of the capital project and to assess its deliverability before the Council invests time and money into that project. The strategy notes that there are a number of significant areas that will need financing going forward, including economic recovery, decarbonisation and homelessness. As was reported to Council earlier this month, there are also other financial pressures arising as a result of the pandemic and Brexit, which are being seen in existing tender prices, and it is anticipated this will continue for some time going forward. The pressures also include supply chain difficulties leading to higher prices and delays in schemes being completed. The strategy also refers to the changes with regards to the ability to borrow from the Public Works Loan Board, as mentioned earlier, and authorities will be asked to confirm that there is no intention to buy investment assets primarily for yield in the current or the following 2 financial years. Whilst this does not preclude the Council investing in commercial activities, investing in assets solely for yield would prevent the Council from accessing the Public Works Loan Board borrowing. As the Council will need to borrow to support the 21st Century Schools Band B programme and the wider capital programme, this will prevent the Council investing in land or property purely to achieve a financial return. In section 3 of the strategy, details are contained which outline the robust process in place to approve, manage and monitor capital projects. As members are aware, quarterly capital monitoring reports are prepared for Cabinet and Council, which include details of any variances between projects, as well as projections of likely year-end spend. The proposed capital investment programme for the period is detailed in the strategy. The details of how the programme will be funded, including the use of general capital funding provided by Welsh Government, the use of capital receipts and borrowing is also detailed. Finally, each year, the Council must set aside a provision for repaying external debt. This is known as the minimal revenue provision. The MRP needs to be approved by Council before the start of each financial year. The policy statement with regards to this can be seen in section 7 of the capital strategy. If I may, Mr. Mayor, I'd now like to refer members back to the recommendations in the covering report. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Caris, for that. And again, it's released to me earlier on. Thank you, and Deborah and all your finance team for all the reports and all the work leading up to today, because there's a massive amount of number crunching on in the background. I just can't even begin to imagine how many spreadsheets must be flying around. But big thanks to all there for getting that done. And taking members of the recommendations, we have recommendation of the Treasury Management Strategy 22-23, including Treasury Management Indicators 22-23 to 24-25, Appendix A. The Capital Strategy 22-23 to 23-32, including potential indicators 22-23 to 24-25, Appendix B. And the last recommendation is the Annual Minimum Revenue Provision MRP Statement 22-23, Appendix B, Section 7. So the recommendations, do I have a mover and seconder, please?
The report, Chair.
Second.
Chair, second.
Seconded.
Yeah, second.
Okay, thank you. All in favour?
Yeah.
And, thank you. I don't see anybody indicating with any questions. Good. Okay. All happy with that? That item 7 has been moved, seconded, and all in favour. Thank you. And that brings us to the last item, urgent items, which I have not been notified of any urgent items. So at 17:35, we're going to bring this meeting to a close. Thank you all for your participation.